Shoots the fadeaway up and good. Oh, Suggs look for him. He goes, where did he go? He didn't see him. 45-40. Warriors up 5. Curry with a flurry and a timeout for the Magic.
It's time for Warriors Wrap-Up. We'll bring you into the locker room and hear from Coach Kerr and the players. Highlights from the game. Warriors Wrap-Up starts now.
Well, that was Tim Roye on the call, as he is always here on 95.7 The Game, and I do love Jalen Suggs. I mean, I'm a fan of West Coast Conference basketball. I'm following him since Gonzaga, but Stephen Curry, for whatever reason, just decided to take out his frustration in that particular play on Jalen Suggs, as he did really the entire night to the Orlando Magic. Curry scores 36 points in 35 minutes, and the Warriors get a much-needed win at home as they take down the Orlando Magic 121-115. What's up, everyone? This is Warriors Wrap-Up here on 95.7 The Game. My name is Evan Giddings. We're presented by Xfinity, the Xfinity 10G network made for streaming live sports. The Warriors get back into the win column, snapping a 3-game skid. And look, I know that I wasn't here for the last 3 games, but that looked to me like the team that when I left right before Christmas was the team that was consistently putting up performances at home. Now, I know they didn't run away with the game tonight, but that was a quality victory against an Orlando Magic team that is 4th in the Eastern Conference, that hadn't necessarily been playing well as of late, but that's a team that, at least earlier in the season, especially during the 4 out of 12, 16-game stretch, you thought would give the Warriors some fits. And to their credit, they did. I mean, the Magic battled hard tonight, and it kind of seemed to me like a game where Orlando just, and literally down the stretch, just would not let go of a chance to win that game. In the first quarter, it was free throws and fast break points that they took advantage of. In the second half, it was some ample opportunities, including, an end-of-the-half three-pointer by Gary Harris, and Curry and Wiggins kind of got lost a little bit. In the third quarter, the Warriors began to pull away. They found themselves offensively. The Splash Brothers began to get going. And then defensively in the fourth quarter, I thought Jonathan Kuminga really set the tone. And along with someone like Klay Thompson, who was going body for body with Paolo Banchero, who is a mountain of a man, by the way. I mean, seeing him on television is one thing. Getting to see him live at Chase Center, the 6'9", 230-pound animal that is Paolo Banchero, I thought Klay did a pretty good job on him. And then Kuminga, I thought, really set the tone defensively against a lot of solid perimeter players for Orlando. So that was a good win by the Golden State Warriors tonight. It was a much-needed win after laying eggs against Miami and even against Dallas to some extent. Both of those are also playoff teams. But to me, the Denver game was understandable, the way that they went back and forth. The Miami game, I didn't think the Warriors really showed up for. And then the Dallas game, there was just a bunch of miscues, especially on the defensive side. Tonight, you didn't see that as much. You saw gang rebounding. You saw the Warriors not foul while playing defense. And you also saw them, I know they were dealt a big blow tonight. Gary Payton II goes down with what is reported as a hamstring injury. That is straight from the Warriors. He actually tweeted after the game. You can go check it out. There's a funny gif about how things just essentially aren't fair for him right now. 2 games back after a calf strain kept him out for an extended period of time, and he goes down with a hamstring injury. So, a win and a loss from that perspective. But the Warriors climb back to 1 game below 500, now 16-6 16-17 overall. They hand the Magic their 14th defeat of the season. Now 19-14 are Orlando. 888-957-9570 is the number if you want to chime in on the Comcast Business text line. If you want to call in, I see on the YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union. We appreciate you all chiming in. And my family, what time does the postgame generally start? Well, that depends on, Tim Roy as well as R.C. Davis, who did a fantastic job after the game. But generally, I'd say anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes after the game. And, of course, you can watch on YouTube. You can listen on the Odyssey app, the free Odyssey app. And I think there was also a couple of things that happened around this game. Number one, I mean, the biggest story is Stephen Curry. I mean, Steph during a 3-game losing streak, and we talked about it today on Stein and Gruber. To me, the biggest reason the Warriors lost those 3 games was because Steph did not play at the top 5 player level that he's capable of. And look, I know people are going to have ups and downs. I'm not saying he's got to just show up and score 35 a night, but in order for this team to be in games against good teams, I think Orlando is a good team. They need Curry to play well. And tonight, he absolutely did. And you could kind of tell, too, like the frustration that Steph had on his face on the bench after Miami and during the game against Dallas. I mean, he took it out on the Orlando Magic. And you could tell there was a look away in the third quarter from the bench. There was a step back over Goga in the fourth quarter, a little, turn around, and he's looking at the crowd already running back to the other end. There's a shimmy on an and one late in that game down the stretch. Steph was demonstrative tonight. And to me, I think that there was a building frustration, yes, with the losses over the last 3 games, but with the way that the team had been playing, kind of sleepwalky a little bit, lackadaisical at times, not knowing where to be during those 3 games. And Steph, to me, took it upon himself, even in the first quarter, or the first half, when he wasn't shooting that well, he was aggressive. He took some early shots in shot clocks. Like, he was rushing a little bit, and then once he found it, it just absolutely unloaded. I mean, Steph just took this game into his hands and took things over in the fourth quarter. It's the 5th time that he scored 35-plus this season. And I also don't think there's a correlation between that number, or the 30, I should say, and the wins and losses. The Golden State Warriors are 11-3 when Curry scores 30-plus points. They're 5-14 when he doesn't. And, more than ever, this team goes as Steph goes. And tonight, Steph was damn good. He was great against the Orlando Magic. And that is I think that's the second best defense as far as per 100 possessions. That is a really good defense that Stephen Curry just torched. And he gave them 36 and 35 minutes. He had 27 through 3 quarters. And he put the team on his back offensively in that second half. I know he also shouldered a lot of the load offensively in the first half, too. But the efficiency, the showmanship, the entertainment, all of it was packaged together in that second half by Stephen Curry. And I think the rest of the Warriors also fed off of that. It's the first time this season all 5 Warriors starters have scored in double digits. Now, I know it's kind of a new starting lineup in a sense. It's the 11th starting lineup combination that Kerr has used through the first now 32 games of the season. But Kuminga, we just go down the line here. Kuminga, 34 minutes, was a +9, scoring 19 points. I thought he was incredibly impactful in the second half after a first half in which I thought he might have been trying to do a little bit too much. And I was glad that didn't, leak into Kerr's mind and have him not go back to him or not give him extended run, because Kuminga is a guy that is built for a team like the Orlando Magic. He is long, he is lengthy, he is athletic, he is strong, he can get downhill, and it doesn't matter who's on the other side when he is in the right mindset, and he absolutely was tonight. So I was glad to see Kuminga. He was 1 of 5 from 3, but I think the mentality on both ends of the floor to me is what I liked. Also a willingness to move the ball where it needed to go. I thought Kuminga had a great feel to tonight's game, specifically in the last 24 minutes, and is also a big reason why the Warriors won tonight. Trayce Jackson-Davis, 10 points in 24 minutes, had a couple of big blocks. I know he cleaned up stuff around the rim, had a couple of easy looks set up by Klay Thompson in the first quarter. He got a couple of putbacks late that were really nice, but to me, defensively, just added somewhat of an interior presence, had a couple of big blocks, And then also was able to get to the free throw line, which the Warriors as a whole did against the number one free throw shooting team in the league. They were plus 13, or probably plus 14 in terms of free throw attempts tonight. They did miss 13 of them, so that's something you got to clean up. But Trace Jackson-Davis got to the stripe 6 times. Chris Paul, I thought, was up and down, but he's a player that even when he doesn't have it going offensively, I thought Chris Paul was a little bit hesitant, especially off the rip. And then when Orlando began to make their run towards the tail end of the third quarter, they got a leak out in a Wagner dunk, and then they went on an 8-0 run to begin that fourth quarter. I thought that Chris Paul was not really impacting the game, or was kind of just settling and going, not through the motions, but he was a little bit slow. And then once, when Curry comes on the court and starts doing what he does, it makes everyone better. I thought Paul fed off of that as well. Klay Thompson tonight, 15 points. I know he was 3 of 8 from 3, but he got a couple of looks inside the 2, had a couple of dishes, and then I think what he did most importantly tonight, to me, defensively making Paolo Banchero work. That is not someone that is easy to stay in front of, especially when you're giving up. And Klay Thompson has been asked to guard 4s, but he hasn't been asked to guard, I don't think, a physical specimen for a long extended period of time the way that he was asked to guard Paolo Banchero tonight. And I know Paolo ended up with 27 and 12. A lot of it was kind of down the stretch when the Warriors were trading baskets and just trying to stave off the Magic, and they did give us a scare there down the stretch. But I think for most of the game, you look up midway through the fourth, and Paolo's 5 for 15 from the floor. He's 8 for 20 on the game, got a lot at the free throw line, and had a few offensive rebounds as well. But I thought Klay Thompson battled against Paolo, and I didn't necessarily expect him to be someone that drew that assignment, number one initially, but then for the entire game. And that was something that the Warriors just had to go to because there was so much other size to worry about. Kuminga was on Franz Wagner. Mo Wagner gave them good minutes. You had Badaze, who's a 7-footer, can step out. Actually hit every single one of his shots tonight. The Magic had a lot of size, and Klay Thompson ended up on Banchero, and I thought he held his own. But again, the Warriors as a whole, their starting unit tonight, 19 from Kuminga, 10 from TJD, 12 from CP3, 15 from Klay, and then, of course, the 36 from Stephen Curry. 888-957-9570 is the number. This is Warriors Wrap-Up with Evan Giddings on 95.7 The Game. Please chime in on our Comcast Business text line. I'll see you there on YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Let's get out to Daniel in Daniel in Indiana. I apologize. Oh, there might be a Pacifica in Indiana. What's up, Daniel? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up. How you doing?
What's up, my guy? How are you?
Good, man. How we feeling? How we feeling after the win? They snapped a skid. What's good?
Yeah. So, what I've noticed is the Warriors, they've lived and died by the 3, man. Become too one-dimensional at times, and same with the playoffs last year. The win tonight is a lot to do with the ability to go inside and create, and that opens up the outside, and those opportunities. Kerr, obviously, still trying to fit too many guys into the game. Continues to pull guys after they hit a couple of shots and start to warm up, which I don't think makes any sense. Because basketball is a rhythm thing, you got to let those guys play. But I know we're deep. Those other guys need to come in and be a change of pace. They don't need to, just because you're paid $1 million doesn't mean that you're guaranteed minutes, And other than that, I think it was great to see these guys focusing on defense. If GP2 is going to be out for, an extended period of time, then obviously I think Moses should get those minutes. He got some stank defense. And last thing, I would say it's obvious that Dario is kind of outclassed by TJD and Kuminga athletically. It was a crime to see TJD sitting on the bench while, Dario just kind of labored through the whole process. And, and I guess if I'm going to tag on to that, with Steph, as far as Steph goes, I would love to see him box out sometime. Just put a body on somebody and try to box out, especially when TJD is trying to, rotate over and get somebody else's man. I just see him standing around like way too much down there. So that's where I'm at, man.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate the call. A lot of good points there. Also appreciate you sticking with us at, if I believe, Indiana is on the Eastern time zone. You're up at 1:30 in the morning, my man. Thanks for calling in. I think some good points there. And look, the elephant in the room for this game, like if there was going to be something that I think people will look at and say, what the heck? Because there's always something to come down Steve Kerr's road for. It is the absence of Moses Moody. And I think with the injury to GP2, who also was really good tonight. Like I thought, so the Magic get off to an 11-2 start to the game. And then the Warriors stabilized a little bit, but what changed is Kerr brought in the combination of GP2 and Brandon Podziemski. And I was always curious to see how those guys would fit together. Not that I didn't think they would. And I'm sad now that it looks like we're not going to get to see them play together for at least a couple games. Hopefully it's not an extended period of time again for GP2, who just seemed to can't catch a break when it comes to injuries. But they're players that kind of do similar things as far as, they're anticipatory, they're really good rebounders, they have a nose for the ball. Podziemski's probably, is a better shooter. GP2 is more athletic and a better defender, I think. So I was curious to see how they'd complement each other. When they came into the game in the first quarter, they were immediately like a +8. So they brought great energy off the bench. And I think that the move for Chris Paul to go into the starting lineup, it might be kind of a wash at this point. I mean, Podziemski, he still played 28 minutes. It's not like he didn't have a great impact on this game. It was in the game down the stretch until Kerr decided he had to go back to Chris Paul because Curry had a couple of late turnovers. But to your point about Moody, this is what I'll say. So that was around the tail end of the third quarter when Orlando looked like they were going to make a run. So GP2 goes down at the 3:49 mark of the third quarter, and it was all bad, right? He nearly throws his headband. From the media section, it was very clear he was cursing. Like, he knew what he'd injured. And if you actually go back, it looked like he injured it on the possession before when he was trying to defend in the backcourt and then got knocked over, grabbed his hamstring, tried to play through it a little bit, and then ran into a screen. I forget if it was Cole Anthony, but anyways, he grabs his, I thought it was like his thigh or his groin, but it evidently is his hamstring according to Golden State, their PR team. So he goes down, and then the Warriors get Pods hits a 3 to put them up 6, and then they end the quarter with a Wagner leak out. In the fourth quarter, you exit with that same lineup, which is Podziemski, CP3, Šarić, Wiggins, TJD, I think, was the 5 out there. And that's a situation where I think a lot of people are looking at Moses Moody. And and GP2 has kind of taken Moses Moody's spot. Like, I thought it was also telling that when Podziemski came into the game for the starters, like the first possession or first subs, Podziemski comes in for Chris Paul. GP2 comes in for Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson's the 2. That's kind of been Moses Moody's spot. So when GP2 comes in and takes those minutes, it's understandable because I think GP2 right now is probably a little bit better of a fit, and Moses Moody's just the odd man out. But when GP2 gets hurt, I do think there is a question of, well, where is Moses? And if the answer is, I know we're going to hear from Steve Kerr in just a little bit, if the answer is, well, he hadn't played to that point and we didn't want to throw him in cold, I guess I'll hear that. It was a relatively close game, but we've also seen Kerr throw Jonathan Kuminga into a game that he hadn't played. Granted, that was against Portland, and that was a game where nothing else was working, but Kuminga was able to really have a big impact at that game, and that's jump-started what has been a great extended stretch from JK. So, maybe it was that Moses hadn't played to that point, and he didn't think it was fair to throw him in cold. Maybe he liked what he saw from, because at that point, to me, it probably would have been for CP3 or Šarić. And I would have been fine. I didn't think Dario played that well tonight. And to me, to your point, Daniel, and there's a long-winded way of saying it, I would like to see TJD get a little bit more of Šarić's time. But, in that situation, that's probably where you do see Kerr in the beginning of that fourth quarter lean more on a veteran because he wants Chris Paul on the floor with Wiggins, who's a vet, but then Podziemski TJD are both playing. Those are both rookies, so he wants some more experience on the floor, and Moody evidently didn't fit into that. So I think that's a fair criticism. But I also didn't know at that time what the options were, because what I saw in real time wasn't people asking for Moody necessarily. I think it was just a culmination of the fact that he hadn't played the entire time. But when Orlando began on an 8-0 run, it was, well, where's Steph? Where's someone who can put a pin in this run that Orlando's making? And I'm looking at the box score. I'm seeing, well, Curry played 27 minutes or 26 minutes through the first three quarters. At the time, Klay Thompson did not play that well. He was in foul trouble early. I thought in the first half he took some tough shots, especially from three, and he finished the game very strong. But I didn't think it was a place where Klay Thompson's the one you throw in to stop a sinking ship potentially. I don't know what else the options were. If people believe Moses Moody was that guy in that spot, well then that's fair. So. Sadil Nunez on YouTube is saying Moody's a great defender and a shooter. I don't know what Kerr's thinking. Moody is a solid defender, I think, and he's kind of a streaky shooter. I don't think he's that great of a knockdown shooter. In fact, to me, that's probably why he doesn't play more, is because he's not as much of a consistent three-point shooter as the Warriors want him to be. And now I think he is hopefully going to get some minutes because Draymond and GP2 are out. But, tonight, I think that was just kind of a tough spot. And luckily, the Warriors went and grabbed that game because Curry was awesome. If Moody comes in and they lose, I think there's also criticism to say, well, how come Steve Kerr went to a guy who hadn't played yet and threw him into a game, and maybe he doesn't play well? You don't want to set someone up to fail. I know Moses is Mr. Stay Ready, but to me, that was a 6-1 half dozen of the other situation. And if you feel differently, I'm happy to hear it at 888-957-9570. To me tonight, as we move towards our hardest worker of the game, brought to you by the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, who works hard to serve the community. Are you looking for a career in law enforcement? Learn more about job opportunities at joinacso.com. To me, looking up and down, this is kind of a tough choice because I thought there was a lot of hard workers. Off the bench, I thought Looney played well tonight. I know he only had 5 points, picked up a lot of fouls, but 5 rebounds off the pine was a +10 along with GP2. Pajemski always works hard, but to me in this game, the hardest worker on both ends of the court was Jonathan Kuminga. And I thought it was... I didn't think it was his best game of the season because I would still contend that his performance against Boston was more critical in a game against a better opponent with a little bit higher stakes because that game went to overtime. The Warriors were down by 17 in that game, and Kuminga played really well in the fourth quarter, as well as, of course, getting that pick six to start OT to help Golden State win that game and what has been their most impressive win this season. So I think Kuminga, that would be my Kuminga game so far this year. But if you're telling me that this was the best half that he's played in a season, or that he's played this season, I'll certainly hear that. Jonathan Kuminga in the second half was really good. And defensively, I thought he got the best of Wagner in that second half. Now, I think, of course, there was... And I wonder how much, if we could get a candid Kuminga to speak about his approach coming into this game, because he hasn't really had the opportunity or been given it to play against Orlando for an extended stretch, and mainly play against Franz Wagner, who was the guy who was drafted right behind him. And a lot of people have gone back and forth. Was it the right pick? Was Kuminga wrong? Blah, 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 blah. That doesn't matter. I think Kuminga is the kind of competitor that would say, and he picked him up, if you noticed, off the jump, starters. Kuminga was matched up on Wagner. I think he wanted that assignment, and I think he wanted to take it to Wagner to prove, in a sense, that he was the right pick and that he is the right pick. Because in the second half, even though Wagner had 25 on 10 of 19 shooting for the game, in the second half, Kuminga gave it to him. He was defending. He was switching. He was passing. He was getting blocks. He got downhill. He got to the free throw line. Jonathan Kuminga checked just about every single box that there is to check against one of the most athletic and defensive-laden groups in the NBA in that second half. And I thought he was fantastic, and I thought he got the better of Wagner. So tip of the cap to Jonathan Kuminga and our hardest worker of the game. All right, when we come back on Warriors Wrap-Up, I do want to take more of your calls. I apologize, Junior. I see you. We'll get you on the other side. Also want to listen to Steve Kerr, who spoke post-game about a litany of things. He also had a juicy quote before the game about Draymond Green. But if you want to chime in, 888-957-9570 is the number. I see you on YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Also the Comcast Business text line. I see you. 447. Dub Nation wants to see more balanced wins like tonight from the starters and the bench. 7 players in double digits tonight for the Warriors. 5 in the starting lineup. That's the first time this season. I'll repeat. First time this season. The Warriors have had all of their starters in double digits, and they beat a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, taking down the Orlando Magic, again, score 121-115. We'll step aside, be back after this with more on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game.
The Warriors have their biggest lead of the night. It's 80-74. 4:10 left in the third, and Chase is on fire.
Now back to Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game.
All right, 1 second here left on Warriors Wrap-Up. Evan Giddings with you on 95.7 The Game. 888-957-9570 is the number if you want to chime in. Comcast Business Text Line, also the YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union as well as Twitch. Warriors get a much-needed win against a good Orlando Magic team tonight at Chase Center. Final score 121-115. Warriors move a game within 500, and of course that is big considering you got the defending champs coming into town on Thursday night, the Denver Nuggets, and then you follow that up with a couple of easier home games to end your homestand compared to the ones that you started with. You know, you get 4 playoff teams in a row essentially, and then after that you get Detroit, Toronto, and New Orleans. So, you know, the Warriors, I think, are in a decent position right now. The game against Denver will be telling because I thought the Warriors hung with the Denver Nuggets on Christmas Day right down to the wire. And if not for, you know, a slow Curry game and a slow Clay game, they might have won that game. So if Curry plays like he does tonight, again, 36 points in 35 minutes. When Curry scores 30 or more points, the Golden State Warriors are 11-3. When he does not, they are 5-14. If he plays like he does tonight, I like their chances even against the defending champs. But I told Junior we'd get him on right before the break. Junior in Pacifica is up right now on 95.7 The Game here on Warriors Wrap-Up. What's up, Junior? What do you think of the game?
Hey, thank you for coming around, and appreciate this good conversation late at night. Hey, your analysis gave me a thought. So you kind of showed evidence on both sides, and I think Steph is largely carrying the team right now. I think we're just very dependent on his hot or not nights. A few years ago, LeBron was in the same situation where the team around him was not very strong. He has always been more overt in his actions at the team and trade level than Steph has. Steph has kind of had final approval or, you know, been in the discussion, whereas LeBron has often driven the discussion with his teams. It may be, you know, and Lacob's interests are a little different than Steph because Lacob bones this thing for the long term. Steph has his era that's, you know, but if Steph is still going to be strong at 39, he may need to push harder to get a team around him that's going to maximize his talents. And LeBron did it like 2 or 3 times. The you know, Lakers kept shaking the Yahtzee dice until they came up the way they wanted. And now they are a serious contender. Steph may have to, you know, swim in a little different lane and push a little harder, even if it's not quite public. But he may have to throw his weight around. And then just one quick thing to highlight. Someone talked about Steph boxing out. I mean, I'm sorry. Steph totally overperforms for his size, but for him to box out is not an easy thing to ask.
Yeah, I mean, well, you got to nitpick one thing, Junior. I mean, Steph's not perfect. I'm just kidding. That's a great call. Look, I think that is something that, to me, you talk about the leadership or the difference between a Stephen Curry and a LeBron as roster construction is concerned. I think that's one of the reasons why I have always really liked Stephen Curry, the person, because whether he is someone that behind closed doors is aggressive when it comes to trades or not, I don't really know. I would probably lean towards no just based on how the teams have been in Golden State. They've been ones that have had continuity, and I don't think Curry is a guy that goes in and asks for people to be traded for. Oddly enough, I think the one time that Steph was vocal about wanting a player was when he wanted Avery Bradley before the 2022 season. And obviously Avery Bradley was not on the team, and instead the Warriors went out and signed this guy who had been kind of bouncing around, hadn't played more than, I think, 40 or 50 games in a season. His name was Gary Payton II, and he ended up being great for the Golden State Warriors. So, you know, that's not to say that Steph doesn't know how to evaluate talent. Or I just don't think that is who Steph is. And if you think that doesn't make him, you know, a complete leader, or, you know, he needs to be more aggressive, I mean, I guess I can kind of understand that. I think that Curry has been more vocal in recent years than ever before, And the evidence of that would be Game 7 against Sacramento last year when he told Draymond Green to essentially drop the mic and take a seat because he was going to do the pregame speech and get the guys riled up. And instead, he ended up riling up himself. He scored 50 points in a Game 7. So, I don't know. At the trade deadline, and these are questions that I think are being broached now because the Raptors and the Knicks made a move. Like, they fired the first shot where a lot of trades don't tend to happen at either the end of December or the beginning of January. But if the Warriors do make a move, they will have to run it by Stephen Curry. That is where I will meet you, Junior, is if the Warriors do make a move, they do not do it without his say-so. Now, that doesn't mean that he is going to be a guy banging on the table saying, I want this, I want that. But the moment that they decide to trade someone, because in all likelihood, if the Warriors do move off of a piece this season, it's probably going to be someone that is or was a big part of their 2022 championship. And that means you have to run it by the chef. I think you owe him that, and I don't think you do anything from a trade perspective unless he gives them the say-so. But I don't think he's the LeBron guy that goes into the war room with his GM hat every 2 weeks and says, what are we doing? How is my team going to get better? Because I don't think that's who Curry is. It's one of the things I actually really like about him. 888-957-9570 is the number. Comcast business text line as well. I'm with you, 626. Warriors have the rematch against the Nuggets circled after the Xmas loss. Look out, Denver. And this is, gosh, I really hope it doesn't go the same way as the first two times. I know that they were in Denver, but it's not just about the losses themselves, because they've lost to Denver twice this year by a combined 9 points. They lost 108-105, and that was the game where Clay had a chance at a half-court heave, dropped the ball, or Chris Paul had the pass too far ahead, whatever you want to call it. They lose that game on November 8th. If you remember, that was the start of their 6-game losing streak, in which they lost 5 of which at home. So that was not a good start to that specific stretch of the season, and it was after they were 6-2. Things looked okay. It was an understandable loss, and then fast forward to Christmas Day, you're coming off of 5 wins in a row. You think you've righted the ship. You're a game above 500. Boom. You lose a game in which you play really well. Andrew Wiggins was solid in that game. Podziemski put the NBA world on notice, on a national perspective against the champs. The Warriors really, I think, lost that game because of free throw shooting, and you can make an argument the referees weren't great in that game. So all those things happen. And then you come home and boom. You lay an egg against Miami. Dallas takes advantage of you. Doncic has 39. So what I hope, don't get me wrong. Tonight is a good win for the Golden State Warriors, and it was a needed win. And it was also a win in which they bucked a couple trends, right? Orlando is a team that was second in defensive rating. Well, Stephen Curry annihilated them. He dropped 36. Orlando's a team that gets to the free throw line more than any other team in the NBA. The Warriors were plus 14 in free throw attempts tonight. They outdid them there. And then you look at the height of the Orlando Magic on average. They're the tallest team in the NBA. And what did the Warriors do? They hung with them on the glass. So I think the Warriors had a good win tonight. And not to say, if they lose to Denver, that's also something that is you could foresee. But the rest of this homestand is important from the macro standpoint of, I think you have to go 3-2 at the very least, and you've already gotten one win under your belt. So from the rest of the way, if you can go 3-1 against Denver, Detroit, Toronto, New Orleans, well then you're looking at being 2 games above 500. Even if you go 2-2 the rest of the way, that's not ideal. But 3-1, the rest, pardon me, you'd be a game above 500. I apologize for the math there. But if you go 3-1 over the last 4 games at home, and I think 3 of those games are winnable, especially if you somehow steal one against the Nuggets, and you kind of have been hanging with them the first 2 meetings anyways, and now you get them at home after a good game. You got some of the continuity back. You got some of the chemistry back. I think this is a good spot for the Warriors to play Denver, and they can grab that game. Well, then you might be able to take 2 of the next 3, and you're looking at a team that's above 500 and back in this thing as they hit the road for a 4-game roadie. So I think the Warriors are in a solid position with the win tonight, but they got to back it up. They got to continue to show us that this isn't just another seesaw affair and a roller coaster ride back up and then they come cratering down on Thursday. They need to put together some more continuity, some continuous solid stretches of basketball, and they have been a very streaky team this year. 6-2, then 4-12, then 5-0, then 1-3. And the Warriors have not put together an extended stretch of quality basketball yet. That doesn't mean they're not capable of doing it, but I have yet to see it, and they have an opportunity to do that here in what has been their longest home stretch of the season. Good win tonight against the Orlando Magic, 121-115. Warriors now 16-17. I know Steve Kerr had a couple of interesting things to say after the game, so let's take a listen to the head coach of the Golden State Warriors after the win.
Hamstring strain on Gary, but does he need any more imaging or any more information?
I don't know anything, yeah.
How big of even with no further information, just how big of a blow and disappointing is it for him personally to have just come back?
Yeah, I feel bad for him more than anything. Feel bad for us too, but mainly for him. He's been out, whatever it is, 4 or 5 weeks. He worked hard to get back to this point. He makes such a big impact for us, so fingers crossed that he's not out for too long.
I think maybe Steph got out of the slump tonight a little bit. What do you think about his performance tonight?
Steph was amazing, but Steph is always amazing. He, even when he doesn't score 36 points, he just the attention he draws defensively, what he does to an opposing defense, the way he opens up the floor. He's a remarkable player, and really got himself going on a night when we needed it.
Looked like there were a couple of turning points in the game, one in the second quarter, and then later in the third quarter, I think. What did you see happening during those key moments?
Well, we started rebounding in the second half. They had 13 offensive boards in the first half and only 3 in the second half. So I thought our work on the glass was much better. I think for the most part we defended without fouling, so the game could flow for us, and we took care of the ball. Only 12 turnovers for us, and I thought a lot of guys came in and played really well. Loon was fantastic, plus 10, and obviously closed the game. He's so good defensively, and I thought Wiggs, Brandon, our bench came in, really did a good job.
What do you think of Kuminga overall, especially guarding some of their bigger wings?
Yeah, I thought J.K. had a nice game. He played hard. He wasn't into the ball enough in the first half, and Wagner was kind of getting downhill, and thought his defense picked up and was better in the second half. And then J.K. gives us those buckets around the hoop. Those are big for us. We don't score easily around the basket all the time, and so when he can get to the hoop, get to the foul line, get us easy buckets, it's really important for us. So I thought he played a really good game.
And that was Steve Kerr talking after the Warriors' victory against the Orlando Magic tonight. I think, and I want to echo a couple of those points because it's what we talked about off the rip. I think with Kuminga, what he was able to do on the defensive end of the court, I thought was of paramount importance. I also think what Andrew Wiggins did, similar to Kuminga, Kerr was talking about right there at the end how Kuminga gives them a lot at the rim. I thought Wiggins also in that first half came out offensively and was aggressive as well. So, I think J.K. showed that tonight, even when the jump shot isn't going, he can still find ways to be effective. And he hasn't really shot the three well all year compared to how he had in his first 2 seasons. But he doesn't need the 3 ball to be going to still play with confidence on both ends. Like that is a place of maturity and growth that I've seen from Kuminga. I think if this game happens, if this first half happens last year, maybe even earlier this season, but certainly last year. And remember, Magic actually beat the Warriors, I think, twice last season. Kuminga, I think, is the type of player last year that gets a little bit down on himself or internalizes that kind of pressing in the wrong way. Like he tries to go one-on-one a little bit too much, or he tries to make it a game within the game. And that's where I've seen him take the biggest leap this year. And it's been on display. Like he scored double digits in 14 of his last 15 games. But it's been on display in recent weeks where there's such a better feel. And he's only 21 years old, but there's such a better feel from last year to this as far as where the ball needs to go, where he needs to be on defense, where he needs to be when it comes to rebounding or boxing out. You're not seeing as many, take fouls. You're not seeing as many decisions being made where it doesn't look like there's really, I don't know, thought behind it. Like last year, he was kind of playing, and this year he still is. I mean, he can get up and down with the best of them, but Kuminga is he's turning into a guy that is not just the raw athlete that was the reason why he was taken a pick ahead of Franz Wagner. No, he's turning into the basketball player that the Warriors need on a team like this, which is someone who can consistently provide an impact even when he's not shooting well. And that is one thing that this team hasn't had a whole lot of. Now, I know Curry goes for 36. Like, they're going to be in every game that he does that. But the Warriors have a lot of players on this team, Curry included, that if their jump shot is not falling, it becomes very difficult for the Warriors to score with any consistency offensively. Kuminga is one of the few players that has the ability to get downhill, to create easy shots, to create second chance opportunities, while also providing defense at a two-way level that has been evolving. And the Warriors don't have a lot of those guys. They have guys that got to hit jump shots. Curry, Clay, Chris Paul, even Brandon Podziemski. I mean, Podziemski can get to the lane, and he does a whole lot by tipping balls out and getting loose balls and rebounds. He creates second chance opportunities. But Šarić, jump shooter. Wiggins, at the beginning of the season, was kind of a live or die by the jump shot kind of guy. So I think Kuminga really fills a nice void on the offensive end, yes. But then, of course, also defensively being able to stay in front of people. 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings with you for just a little while longer here on Warriors Wrap Up. Let's get out to Mark in Millbrae. What's up, Mark? You're on Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7. How you doing? Oh, sorry, Mark. I apologize. In that case, Sterling, would we be able to get to our extending the three-point line?
Curry with the ball. He leads all players in the NBA in clutch scoring. Backs up, shoots over Goga Batasi. He turned away. He was going back up the floor. He knew it was going in. Warriors go up by 7, 104-97. Stephen Curry now with 31 points.
And that is extending the three-point line, brought to you by West Coast Men's Health, successfully treating men for ED and chronic pain. Go visit westcoastmenshealth.com for more information. This is Warriors Wrap-Up, and you are listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM HD1 San Francisco, always live in the free Odyssey app, Twitch, and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Let's clean up a couple of these... messages. If there's anything you want to ask me, whether it's about the game, whether it's about Steve Kerr's update, or I guess lack thereof of Draymond Green before the game, he's officially missed 10 games now from the suspension. The Warriors are 8-9 this year, actually 9-9 after the win without him, so they are a game below 500 without him. They are 500. They're 500, a game below 500 with him. They're 500 without him. Also from the Comcast business text line. From the 510, good job on the turnovers. That was also something that Steve Kerr harped on, except for the 15-second span at the end of the game. Yeah, a lot of bad decisions were made. Actually, that was really funny so Curry turns it over in the backcourt, and I forget who the second turnover was on, or it was like a near turnover. There was a couple of passes. The Warriors throw it out near midcourt. Clay gets it, then it gets batted, and the Magic give it up, and it goes back and forth. And while that sequence is happening, I'm looking over at the bench, and immediately Steve Kerr just pointed Chris Paul, up, get in the game right now. I'm not having this nonchalant kind of, lackadaisical taking care of the ball. I need a guy that can be out there and secure things. And I think Chris Paul even got wrapped up in a trap or a double team. He called a timeout. But Chris Paul is Steve Kerr's go-to in those types of situations when the turnovers start to get off the rails. Also from the Comcast business text line, I think everyone seems to be looking forward to Thursday, and I completely agree. The Warriors make another statement against the Nuggets like they did beating Boston. That's from the 609. That certainly would be a statement, especially considering they haven't beaten the Nuggets this year. I know both games were in Denver, but that's a reason I'm looking forward to the game on Thursday, and I cannot wait to see what they got for Denver. I also have a side bet with one of my best friends who's from Aurora, Colorado. It's right outside of Denver, and he is up big right now, so I need to dig into that hole a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. Look, I think as we kind of put a bow on this thing here on Warriors wrap-up, to me, I thought that this game was big. And I also saw something that was posted on social media about Klay Thompson after the game. Apparently, he had a heartfelt conversation with Steve Kerr about adjusting how he's approached the mentorship, the leadership aspect, and just the game of basketball in general. Because Klay Thompson, during the last two games, mainly, he didn't shoot well against Denver, but 1-11 against Miami, and then didn't shoot well against Dallas. Was seen on the bench, didn't play the last 8.5 minutes of their last game before this, and he was moping, and he wasn't happy. And even in the third quarter of the game tonight, mind you, when Klay picked up his third foul, I believe it was. Sorry, it was in the tail end of the first half. Picks up his third foul, goes to the bench, elbows the bench, was talking to himself, clearly frustrated because he hadn't shot well in the first half, and then he elbows the bench again and kind of like, oh, my bad, I didn't realize I hit my elbow that hard. Like, Klay Thompson can be emotionally volatile, and after the game, he said that he had a conversation with Steve Kerr about how he needs to put that aside. Now, I know this is a long time coming, but you can't be concerned with getting back to the player you were or proving people wrong about the player you are. It's about winning. And that's something that I think Kerr mentioned after the Dallas game. And a lot of people thought that he was just talking about, I don't know, maybe it was the young guys or maybe it was Looney. But when he said agendas, to me, I think he was also, he's pointing the finger at everybody. But a lot of that was also for Klay Thompson because he was the one that was being expressive in a negative fashion. And that has a trickle-down effect, especially when you're in the middle of a game and you're trying to figure out how to get out of this. It's not the end of the world if you miss 3 threes. It could be the end of the world if you miss 3 threes that turn into an extended period of time in which you cannot get out of your own head. Because whether we believe it or not, the fact remains, Klay Thompson is an important part of this Warriors team if they are to be successful. And however you feel about him is how you feel about him. But when Klay is on like he was tonight, making the right decisions, taking good shots, the Warriors can be successful. And when he's in his own head and when he shoots them out of possessions, he can also shoot them out of basketball games. And that was on display during the 3-game losing streak. So I'm glad to see that Klay is hopefully taking that and is going to be able to kind of flip a switch a little bit, to not get down on himself as much if he picks up 3 early fouls. Like, it's okay as long as he did what he did in the fourth quarter, which to me was lock in defensively on someone like Paolo Banchero and make his life a lot harder than it needed to be. So even though Klay Thompson only scored 15 points tonight, I thought he was, of equal importance to others outside of Steph, who's the big story tonight. I thought he was important on the defensive side, which is where the Warriors were able to make their hay against an Orlando team that has been getting to the free throw line more than any other team in basketball. They forced 17 turnovers tonight from the Magic. They also were able to clean up on the offensive and defensive glass, and they gave up 13 offensive boards in the first half, had only 3 in the second half. I think that is a sign that there's gang rebounding. Klay Thompson's involved in there as well. But guys are hitting bodies, guys are being where they're supposed to be, and guys are making plays. So, tonight was a solid win for the Warriors. Stephen Curry just snatched the souls of the Magic in the second half, was shimmying, was taking look-away threes, was staring at the Orlando bench. He shouldered the load offensively, and then everyone else fell in line. That, to me, is the way the Warriors have to win games against quality opponents like the Magic, and a way that I hope that they can continue that on Thursday against the Denver Nuggets. But that's going to put a bow on this edition of Warriors Wrap-Up. We appreciate you tuning in. I am off on Thursday, so Mark Graney will be back with you for Warriors Live and Wrap-Up on Thursday. Warriors got another couple of important home games ahead of them. Obviously Denver, but then Detroit, Toronto, New Orleans. This is a chance for them to make up some ground and get back ideally above 500 heading into the road trip on January 12th. That might be the time that Draymond comes back. That also might be 4 games in a road trip before Draymond comes back on January 19th. All of that is in front of the Warriors, but it did start with a much-needed win tonight. They snap a 3-game skid, and they beat the Orlando Magic by a final score of 121-115. A big thank you to all of you listening out there, whether it's on the Odyssey app, whether it's on YouTube and Twitch, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. We appreciate you tuning in during the day as well. Everyone is going to be back tomorrow. Our lineup will be regular. I know it's been all over the place when they're in the holidays. Bonte and Butcher from 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Steiny and Guru from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then Willard and Dibbs are in for 2 to 6. All 6 hosts back tomorrow. I'm sure this game is going to be a major talking point, along with, of course, the way that the Niners have been playing on 95.7 The Game. So a big thank you to Sterling Bennett, our network coordinator. Big thank you to all of our producers back in studio working hard back there. My name is Evan Giddings saying so long from Chase Center, where the Warriors beat the Orlando Magic. They move a game within 500. The final score one last time is 121-115. We appreciate you tuning in here tonight, and we'll talk to you next time.